Good morning, everybody.
Sanje choda soje Sanje choda Janjo Bado Dani Sanje Chobala Sho Sanje choda Janjo Bado Dani Jato Chen Daji Chijin Jebe Chobala Sho Dayan Tan Gade Gade Paran Gade Parasum Bodhisattva Dayantan Gade Parasum Gade Bodhisattva Dayantan Gade Parasum Gade Bodhisattva All of the Simja Tamjaka to Tojalana Macheva Sanjay Kobaran Boja Chineja Tobalcha. And the teacher to any big Geshe Jobana Switch of the Nampala Nawale Shingo, Shimbale, Togo, Togale. And the Shumano to go to any cause of poverty and the chicken Geshe Jobek Shun Gavotavote, Gavotavo Junju Shuden, then any Geshe Chibi sometimes.
And so we, as usual, then start by setting our motivation. And that motivation ought to be to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit sentient beings. Knowing that to attain such a state, we must perfect all the trainings of the Bodhisattva and the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings, we must understand what they are about. To gain that understanding, we must be able to rely upon an unmistaken text, an unmistaken source of those trainings. And we are fortunate in that today we are here to listen to a teaching from one of the king of the mind training texts, known as the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, as composed by the great master Shantideva.
All so and was Namjin Shen and Rangi Tundela social set to Kumbashe and then Rangi Tungi Nankala and war and get Jaza Lama number Tabjala to Jen Bodhama Lama that Lama Shaja to much set up and Gasor Shaja Chani and yes and Yamchaka to Zeko Luzanama Kula Chugu Mega Tocha Soacha but most of Makora Rangi Tungi Nankala show you some chat.
And likewise, prior to beginning, we set up the merit field in front of us. That merit field is in actual fact our own root guru in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha is there, the one who is greatly compassionate and skilled in need, has one face and two hands, with the right hand in the earth-touching mudra and the left hand in the meditative equipoise mudra, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. We have the certainty that the figure we are visualizing is actually there. The Buddha is really actually there.
Any rank tago do it, and rank city permanent chive, and Jinche marking a simja taja, Rotakaja, city permanent chive, Pimpuja, Trobo, Tomola Soba. Taganisha, and ya, Chingarazu, doesn't with Jawa make up a mess simcha. Taganisha, young Arazu, and the Chig, Titone, Ranku, Rantone, Titu making and Garato Tame, Jaskas, Lasobe, and Taiwa Magia Simja, Massa, never you, some sort of Kubacha.
And so we likewise, we visualize in the space all around us are all kind mother sentient beings, greatly kind mother sentient beings, from our parents on outwards, including those of us who are relatives and friends, those we are close to. Likewise, those who we have no particular feeling one way or another, being in the neutral categorization. And then also those from whom we have have a kind of a dislike, they have a dislike for us, who we might regard as the enemy, the ordinary beings, and that we visualize them all included in that category of all kind mother sentient beings without exception.
And Ranga Duna said, Lama to be on Boti, and Chivo Omkava, Temba Amo, Tuga Hung, Yigi, Sumja set up, and Tuga Hunle, who has a part of Mebatron and Shingraja and Yeshiva, because of one of the Cheva Chantane, and one of the Cheva Chanta, and Gentana, and the Casa only on Chulama, the media would get the
And that visualizing this, the figure in the space in front of us, we see how the Buddha is marked by the syllables Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart center. From that Hung at the heart center, light waves emanate now, going out into the pure realms, inviting the wisdom beings and empowering deities from those abodes. The wisdom beings dissolve into the central figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which now overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya.
답에 랑거 어느 것도 어느 저것도 선한 거 신도 아니 라시 심자 탐제게 아니 저거 어떻게서도 선한 거 신도 봐도 무슨 거라 수요스 어디는 공부자 아니 된대게 라마 투병 못해 구송도 연대 잡았잖아 로타 나라주도 투제 라마라 공부 산자와 란지바 탐제라 자와 셰치바라 탑레지와 콜라 투제 뭐 투제 뭐 이름 뭐 팬다마다 탐제가 된세게 다가니 라마 투병 못해 된도 먼저 세다바티 아니 구송들에 아니 가서 주변 저가 나서봤더니 아니 신랑자는 내배 규마미 봐 미마 저왔잖아 가시 가서 심정을 되는투바 파트 아 가시 되는투는 수 아니 가서 야 가서 주변 로바티가 수도에 봤더니 지금 주변 로바 나서봤더니 아니 파트 야 수도 저 심정을 되는 규모 미마 저왔잖아 수도 어디랬잖아 가서라 다가 지금 추진 가서다 24/7 what I tend to you think
So that when we are visualizing again the figure in the space in front, we reaffirm the actuality, there being really present there, and that they are also like, this fully qualified enlightened being of the enlightened qualities of body, speech, and mind, who for our sake generated the mind of enlightenment, for our sake proceeded along the path, and for our sake, for the sake of all sentient beings, achieved full and complete enlightenment. Also, they have the quality of being experts in means of dispelling any fear of suffering with regard to themselves. Likewise, they are experts in being able to dispel the fear of suffering for all others. They work for all sentient beings without bias and with great compassion, and they work to benefit all without ever feeling that they need benefit in return. And so these are some of the qualities of an enlightened being, and we kind of really develop that sense of really clear faith in them. We also see that particular place of visualization is a very active center, an intersection of coming and going of countless emanations of the Buddha, going in all directions in order to ripen the minds of those who are yet to be ripened, and to further ripen those who are already on the path. And that this is a 24/7 very busy intersection of activity, coming and going constantly.
What the legend? That kind of rock as the what the combat, Ranga Tago to Magasm Jetamjeki, and it 가소라다 레조소소 동안 냐서 아마 나라도는 신체네 아니 저게 가서도 미 남주여 되는 거 라마 투병 뭐 연대돼서 아니 가서도 뭐진 투바체네 아니 데라 다음에 와 이시게 때 뭐도 그때 발라서 나라도 같이 계획을 받지나 시제 아니 막에 심지어 탐자가 되는 시제 아니 계획 받지 아니 공부시
We also have an awareness of all the sentient beings all around us, of all the 6 realms of existence. And though that is the case, they all have the capacity to understand this scenario through a human intelligence. And therefore, they have that equal appreciation for the qualities of the enlightened being, the same as we have. And equally so, that generates the faith of pure faith, the faith of conviction and manifest faith at the same time.
어디랬지? 어느 당안에서 덤베 윤대 돈에 아니 라마투병 윤대 돈에 될라 아니 대바 로타 이제도 모두가 대바 로스바 안 심제가 동에 나서라 때는 삼로다네 아니 미스베 닝제 어떤데 잖아 로타 미스베 닝제 안 되는 임바인사 아니 심제다 탐제 아니 저기 가서라다 저기 동에 주다 잡아졌잖아 지모로 잡아 주제 잡아 쇼지 잡아 따게 지금 대다잖아 라마 투병 거 친구도 수 공부하셔 아니 심제다 탐제 타요 마켓에 대다 탐제 대화다 대외 주다 잡아졌잖아 지모로 대바 쇼지 demba shuje demba juje demba tagise teda jeno lama tuwa go chingil na dusus teda teda dunga dewa de dewe jude chaba matena chimoro mitao juje mitao shoje mitao tagise teda jeno lama tuwa go chingil na dusus wotene kombaja wota tende yongale niri chada de jawa majo yong meba tende je simje teda tanje ani niri chada de jawa tanyola na chimoro neba juje neba shoje 안 내가 다게 지게 대다전에 라마 투병 거 징글 놔뒀어. 근데 순대 잡을래 때는 라마 투병 거 굴레 두제나가 왜 세대 잡고 규현반 투바면 어디 버리 켜봐도야. 근데 세메시가 또 밖에 벌어 버지 뒤바다 뒤바지 마. 나니니 바 장수 삼사차. 안 되다 구소도 그 유연대 좋아라 때는 아니 근데 세메시가 또 봐. 라서 심자 탐지가 규래. 어느 게 바자 켜봐자 샤수 서도 그 맞아.
So then, whilst ourselves and all other sentient beings are regarding the Buddha with this triple faith, pure faith, manifest faith, and faith of conviction, we also are viewing all of the sentient beings all around us with this sense of compassion, which can't bear to see them suffering so. And within this context, then we also make our supplications to the Buddha, thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may this be the case. May I be the one to see that it is so. O Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so. And how wonderful if all sentient beings had happiness and the cause of happiness. And may this be the case. I will see to it. O Guru Deity, please bless me to make this so. How wonderful if all sentient beings had the happiness that knows no suffering and the excellent bliss of liberation. May this be the case. I will see to it, O Guru Deity, please bless me to make this so. And of course, we make these kind of entreaties as sincerely as we possibly can, but knowing that as long as we have discrimination in the mind, we have no basis on which to be able to fully cultivate these good qualities. And so we also pray, how wonderful if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that hold some close and others distant. May this be the case. I will see to it that is the case, O Guru Deity. Please bless me to make this so. And as a result of the sincerity of our supplications, then the descending nectar light begins to flow from the Guru Buddha into us. And this is a purifying light and purifying all of our negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated for so long. And then also a light which is an endowing light, which is really allowing us, giving us a special imprint to be able to quickly, fully actualize the four immeasurable thoughts.
어디서 다 근데 이마저 심지어 단자 지금 대화도 탐제 대마 동네 탐제도 대화제 다 소소제라 다 지금 오늘은 타침 바지 잡아라 다 산제에 고 마도는 탐해 봐라 근데 이제 이마 인자 아니 라 산제에 공부 마도 탐해 봐 인자 그러다 뭐 제가 저도 제도고요 말이야 다 제마도 좀 생각했으나 그러다 지금 소 학생께는 제가 저도 제도고요 말이다 그래서 라디 통계도 생겨요 말이야 다 근데 통계 사도 솔어서 아니 세 투제 심지어 투제 라라 공부서 산제와다 되나 세도가 라마 투배하고 공부하면 또 다들에서 되게 공부 마도는 타면도 토발 지리 삼사 왔다 간제 지 가서데 공부하시네 왔다 뒤에도 다 가자 투배하고 공부하고 아니 자주 가서도 다 자주서 벨랍잘 말라는 탐해 봐 왔다 근데 이제 왔다 가자 투배하고 공부하고 봐서 자주가 샘께는 줘발라고 그래 근데 이번에서 왔다 아니 근데 이번에서 왔다 내가다 랍기 인사서 왔다 공부하시나 라마 투배하고 검시병안에 왔다 어디 가서도 계속 주변 쇼데 세체 왔다 미유다 산제 공부 투배치도 어디죠
And so this beautiful thoughts that all sentient beings should have all happiness and be free of all suffering. And that it really kind of understanding that in order to be able to really actualize that, I need to attain the state of enlightenment, and I can have such a powerful, exalted intention or special intention of really wanting to take personal responsibility for providing that happiness and removing the suffering of all sentient beings. But I realize how limited I am at this point. I need to actually attain that state of enlightenment, understanding that the Buddha has led the way in showing that in order to benefit for the sake of sentient beings, generated that mind of enlightenment, for the sake of sentient beings, trained on the path, for the sake of sentient beings, actualized full and complete enlightenment. And so this is the goal. This is the way I must also do it. I see there is no choice in the matter. I must attain that state of enlightenment to be the best able to be of service to all sentient beings. And so therefore, I reaffirm my commitment now to the mind of enlightenment, and once generated, the trainings of the Bodhisattva path with that motivation. And so it is with this in mind that I am here to listen to how to go about that through listening to the teaching from the Bodhisattva's way of life.
올라서 어떤 체 오늘 다들 임바자 지금 가서도 산제 공부 도발아 장주스벨 랍자다 랍고 유원자다 장주스벨 랍자 라발라다 랍자 라발라 다 지금 알아서 내 당고 임바 인사 내라고 요마래 내라고 매바 인사다 가르치고서는 다 라나 내당 근데 차바 임바 이나 대다 담자 아니 개세게 쮸베게 가서다 랍제 다 개세게 다 장주 다 근데 지금에 개세게 쮸베게 가서다 랍제게 퉁게를 줘도 써야지 퉁게를 줘도 써야지 다들도 뒤 퉁게를 줘도 근데 좋아이네 자주가 셈게 근데 좋아이네 돈이도 배셔라게 아니 퉁게를 자투바체 퉁게를 자투바체 랑게 편바다 로다 근데 좋아이네 기본적으로 두부중에다 가이 켜보면도 뒤 다 간제 장주가 셈게 귤을 쳐서 다 저기도 삼사지 디 돈이도 배 치라게 귤을 치는 저기도 디 년중게 귤을 치는 저기도 되게 제도바 저기 삼사지 아니 디 토라다 배준제들도 다디 토라 배준 제바 이나 되네 고스바에 검토가 연구를 준주에 좀토가 연구를 수dim에 송토가 연구를 로다 간제 진바에 땅토가 연구를 와 로다 디가 개세그 개세그 쮸베기 귤을 주고 개세그 쮸베 냠내를 주고 여바 인자 오다 제도바 좀 그러와
So this goal, the main goal that we have in mind is this attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. We have an inkling of the kind of training involved in order to be able to attain such a state. And we know that as beginners, it's certainly not easy. We really are kind of really very much inexperienced and so on. And therefore, it's like we really have to understand the kind of commitment to the Bodhisattva training, and to try to integrate the trainings into everything we do in life. Our whole thrust of living should be to live in harmony with the principles of the Bodhisattva's trainings. And so this is so important. And so to make sure that no matter what occurs for us, that we immediately try to generate the mind of enlightenment, or put it in the context of the wisdom of emptiness. And so, and to say whatever happens, it doesn't matter. I know I'm going to place my mind in the kind of like the bodhicitta intention and the wisdom realizing emptiness. Whatever is fine. Whatever happens is fine. I can also generate the mind of renunciation, and all of these noble thoughts and trainings should be to the forefront of our thinking, regardless of what kind of situation we find ourselves in. This is where we put the effort of our life in, the emphasis of our life. And that of course includes all of the Bodhisattva trainings, the other 6 perfections of patience and ethics and generosity and effort, etc. These are all part and parcel of the Bodhisattva's training.
Neta Kanga Dinesh Mutun to Dilekanga Chowder, Tana was a me Luden Leode. Me Luden Lene Dilekanga Yondu, and then about Lang Basana Nawala Care, Itala Kiwa, Tudula Kiwa, did the Dunga doesn't tap it, Changarazu, Loyu to Mashwater. The name was Otati, the name by Inzata, call it the Mata Vado, Mutun the Dunga did the Yon Tigre. There's a Matana Tamu Dunga Jumate. Call it Taba Chigurdas and Mote, Dunga John the Quabare does Mote to it. And Dilatin calling in Juke. Tali Dunga John or Tati Lane Basana Jore, and didn't she? Simple Lane Basana Gasa you by a day to get near to get the Gochuba show. Samsa Gochuba show, Ota Dunga do the Ota, the Lane Basawa Yanza, did Dunga Sawa that Datu Yawachonsu, Samsa. And the Dunga Tana Narangi Dunga di Nungu Yorte, Yina, didn't she simply Shamage, Tayeva simply together to me, Nunga Jusa Yore, till the tea Dunga Tamja, Nala Nua show, near to go Gochuba show, Tedala Dunga Manu show was an actually Jamba the Ninja compared to Toyota. Tana, what out to mention the Ramana Duamare, you didn't Duamare, the Tenechumare, and Len Yambata Tedela Tenechumare something. And Pique Mango just told them Ramana Duamare, Sanya, Tomani Chola Yabani. What are the legend? Tiga Yanjong, Janju Semkia, Tomani Yabashu to town to it, Jetuaina. And it Dunga Junga to Gochua. Dunga de Dunga, Mahomba Dunga Mayon, that Dunga de, and it said to again, and a twingala to a Jumburwata.
So this, how does this look then to be able to integrate the trainings of the Bodhisattva and the Bodhicitta ideal into every aspect of our lives, regardless of what happens? Is that when problems arise for us, as they inevitably, we are not kind of like weighed down by these problems, not made unhappy by these problems, but to see them immediately in the context of being in cyclic existence. I'm saying I'm in cyclic existence. And therefore, because cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering, therefore this is unavoidable. This is something which is unavoidable. And as long as I'm in cyclic existence, this is really no more than I can expect. And so we have this immediate context for them. I have taken on this body, this contaminated set of aggregates, that is going to draw suffering towards it. It's going to be part of that suffering because I'm in here. I've laid down negative karmas and so on. And so this is the result of negative karmas that has come about. Here it is ripening in this particular life in cyclic existence. So I need not be despondent about this, but I need to be able to look towards it and see it more as a conducive condition for practice. So here, it's kind of like, if I'm not able to, as long as I'm not unable to gain liberation from this reality of cyclic existence, the suffering is inevitable. It's like suffering equals cyclic existence, and that this is what we have to understand. Now, really, I can start to really open my heart and open my mind more by understanding how all sentient beings are suffering because of negative karmas that they have accumulated as well. Similarly, so in cyclic existence, even at this time, may it all ripen upon me now. I'll take all that on, and that I'll make this and say, this transforms this instance of suffering into something good, into something that I can really rejoice in. That They made the, all sentient beings, the causes that they have created for that may they ripen upon me. I'll take it all on in the context of this particular suffering now. And in so doing, I am increasing my love, increasing my compassion. I'm also able to put that into the context that this is something that isn't acting in an independent, objective manner. All of this is occurring independence on the basis of causes and conditions, and in so doing, you are using that particular instance of suffering to increase your loving kindness and compassion, the mind of enlightenment, and you're adding to the store of wisdom at the same time. And so that making that connection with emptiness is so important too. And so kind of like this is not just transforming that moment of suffering for yourself. It is also guaranteeing that there's no causes laid down for suffering in the future. And also you have transformed that particular situation and that particular moment into laying down really important causes for enlightenment itself. And therefore, you have made that moment into a conducive condition for practice.
디기 중화제 연구에 동해 중화제 연구를 다 그냥 가르쳐봐 이네 디게디 추주베 튕겨라 봐 배주 땅 도받지네 추주베 튕겨라 배주 땅 도받지 거두 이네 아니 추주베 용 되기도 추스근데 가서나 녀몰라 카데자에 로 동해 교라 카데자에 들 추스기로 봐 다된자 동해 교라 카데자고 여봐 인사 고 추차 되기로 봐 추차 되기로 봐 로. 다들 인바인사고 디기 중앙에 어 디다 숨바 어 디기 생긴데 어저 레상보 사바자 레상보 사고도 다 이내 단다게 코에 디기래 다 대저 저거 뭐도 아니 저거 타바다 탐색협에 디기 유튜브에 들어봐 유튜브에 뭐라 삼로 따니야 어때 공부시야다 다가는 이제 소소를 디기 중앙에 심지 신라야 되는데 전화 근데 야고 디 용화쇼 대달래야 디기 되는시 용화쇼 다 대자마자 디 시대전에 아니 타바다 탐색협에 디기 용하쇼 상 뭐지다 가이네 요구로 안디야 유대나 마도 공부시야 동일을 받잖아요 삼로 당해도 와다 디게 전에 간제제 대도 근데 중앙 인바 이나야 디 랑게 추트베 튕게 가서다 추뭐 되지 괜찮 가서 계획신이 있다고 삼로 당해 디 추뭐 되고 요바치 딜레데네 추를 꾸마지고 요바치 공부시야 도바 이나 아니 랑게 뒤주 초라면도 먼저 왔지 아니 랑게 먼저 meaningful life 딱 오네데 뒤창고로 와 그래서 먼저 야나 코에 디기요나 코에 동에 연구를 다 디니지 온데도 근데 중앙이네 디 아니 갑도들 국업 심도 왔잖아 국업 심도 왔잖아도 아니 그 뒤주 초라던 거면 또 뒤주 초라마다도 다 meaningful life 디스기로 왔다
So for us, it's inevitable that we will have instances of happiness and suffering arising. And the importance is that we are able to see them both equally as conducive conditions for engaging in spiritual practice. Because after all, what is a spiritual practice? It is the opposing of mental afflictions. Another way of putting this is to oppose the causes of suffering. And so this is what we're doing in being able to transform our attitude in all such instances as this. For example, when happiness arises for us, of course, we can see this is good. This is something that we can enjoy. It arises from some beneficial karma that I've accumulated. But I know that this is only kind of samsaric happiness that is being described here. I must be able to transform this into a cause for the happiness of liberation and the happiness of the omniscient state of enlightenment. And so I really am dedicating this, paying it forward, as it were. And so, and also to think of all sentient beings. May this beautiful feeling I'm having now, may it be for all sentient beings to have, and to kind of also place it into the emptiness category of it, understanding that it is lacking any objective existence. It is merely imputed. And that again, you're making sure that you're laying down the causes for the mind of enlightenment itself and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And to really start to see all of these experiences more as a precious friend, a teacher who's demonstrating this to you, you know, and that kind of like we kind of like no longer have this understanding or kind of this feeling that, oh, I'm wasting time here. I'm not using my time in the best way, because we're always talking about leading a meaningful life and a meaningful life. And this is how you do it. You are transforming everything that arises for you into a Dharma practice, into a Dharma action. And that means you're laying down the causes for compassion, love, bodhicitta, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so that means that, you know, we are kind of like have a much more how do you say, broader, skillful way of dealing with what is inevitable for us, these instances of suffering and happiness, and we're making them far more meaningful.
The less was did you tak sim to bachene? There was Dunga and do you tak sim to bachene and a sugar yamlela jarto bachena, sugar some little part jarto bachaina, and call Yamlen together, young to edge. And that was a gossip about the Slovenian, Slovenian, they are quite young to edge. Slovenian Geshe to the condo with Chigayore, and then there's some condo and room ragmarwa, Google ragmarwa. Google ragmarwa. Then there's some Matuba Latene and a condo do, and the Gasso Sem Makiba Che, Makiba Chene Deva, Makiba Delatene, and Makiba de on condo Sechane. Shedanga Sechan and Kondo Yapem Budwa. Sem Madewati and the Yana Yando Samlatan and Magibachen and the Kondo Samutwa. That is Sabla Magibati, and what a Magiba Yunguranga Koabar was. What did Samlatan do? What a Chikaso de and that you call a Tata and Koyeki Gajan Garichigo de la Capticide, you don't take it. You want to take it.
So it's important to act with at the time that these particular emotions are occurring, to do so there and then, and to grab the opportunity when the suffering and happiness arises to be able to transform both. And similarly, like, you know, with patience, when we're doing this chapter on patience now, it operates in the very same way. That when, you know, we have something happen, when something occurs for us whereby, you know, we might be losing our mental equilibrium, and then we have to ensure that initially there is no opportunity for anger to arise. And because anger arises from the prompting of an unhappy mind, an unhappy state of mind. So if we allow that to happen, you know, that unease within, anger is going to seize its opportunity to arise there. And so we have to put that into context and saying, you know, this unhappiness that I'm feeling, this unease or this disturbance of my well-being, it's nothing more than I have to expect here in cyclic existence. I am a denizen of cyclic existence. And this is the lot I have here. And so I have to be able to deal with this a great deal more skillfully and not allow it to flame up into anger. So in so doing, one is able to deal with whatever kind of arises for us externally and internally at the time it is happening. And that's the best time to deal with it. Shokran gyatang apju ngapni and the any gonig and chibadi. Ganyong bongbala bedona.
Ola so tang ga kapdu de trasha bare kapdu de wodele chat ta ga ina mena go zo gechi shu de so so ge ga so de duju damjin che de gechi mor da duju di ta ga ja ji ga so de so so mo de ngo kho ba re kho ba yin za dong ge yong ge de gang ge che ge res an da yi gang ge de dong ge ge de che wa yin ne di che de tun ge le be ju dang to ba chi yin is che de be tun ge le to ba chi ge ge le mo to ba chi yin is ro ge ge le to yin na kho na ta yong yo ma re 아니 개개를 좋아하는 나 심지어 탐지 산지 고바 두고 있어 다들 다 식삼 카삼 책을 식삼만도 그 영어 말에 다 가르치고 그랬으나 다 대화 중에 동행자 그래서 뒤 최초에 튕겨를 배주 땅 도바이는 아니 예삼 산제 고마 주위에서 그런데 어다 두두와 용거리에 삼사지 뒤녀바 녀바체네 녀바체네 와다 고급디 아니 마쇼와체 그래도 마쇼와체 이렇게 전부다 와다 간자 가서데 가서데 상해 근데 중앙이네 뒤 최초에 튕겨게 아니 두두에 뒤 고급 준두와체네 아니 뒤다 레라보다 말해 엔다 당보 지제 니제 숨제 간zam선에 안고 레라다라다라다라다 용거와 이게 그래서 부고를 배자이 봐 부고 충종지 아니 당보는 거 야랑 고바자도 용거마다 거 야랑게 마사그래 야랑게 마사그래 안 답게 제 간zam선에 거 아니 야랑네 아니 야보장 도토바도 용거와 다 지나 다른 냠내도 저 다가 내시래 거 가서래 야랑 부고 충조도 야랑토에 누바지여 봐 야랑 배 야보 도토에 누바지여도 다 누바디 야 개발라 거 갈리 저리 개고도 다 디데 찍바지냐 단다디 먼저 데데 그 냠내 야보 영에 누바디 여래 그래서 남내 야보 영에 들라 잡대 참아 여래 다들 냠내 야보 마요 들라 잡대 참아 여 말해 달로 투바지고 온게 나를 건배 온게 영어 되게 여래마도 다 단다디 다들 냠내 뿌다고 영에 들도 잡대 참아 여 봐. 서바다 대소라 잡된 참아요래 잡된 참아요도 코디 잡된 참아요도 코 잡된 참아요도 공부하면도 배워요 봐 인사 코 당부 지금 고수도 당부 야고 맞아 용 거래 지금 야고 니 야고 망부 야고 맞아 용 거다 갈리 되지 또 캐네 안 남시나 봐 이게서 다니 좀 코나조 나시 전에다 비다고 냠내 제도 용 거라 코나조 당부는 나라조 나시 전에 내 당부하지 용어를 당부내 배 냠내 제도 볼래 뭐도 말아 봐 와다 된 거저 뭐처배 토네 담보 강에 책에다 이나야 강에 쳐봐나 단다들라 잡된 참아여로 공부하면도 배 요래 삼사 아니 그 배준 제원은 그 마두바지 말이야 삼사 공부해야 되겠지 뭐래도 어디래
So it's really important to kind of reset our minds to be able to deal with whatever occurs in life, be it good, bad, or indifferent, that we have this kind of premeditated attitude of being able to immediately steer all of our experience into Dharma. That is so important, and that we kind of like understand that this is, of course, difficult because we're coming from the opposite. We kind of like really sometimes can quickly overcome by experience, and we kind of like instead of the situation becoming a conducive condition for Dharma, it becomes an inconducive condition for Dharma. And so that means that we have to be very, very convinced in ourselves that when whatever occurs, when it does occur, we do not lose the opportunity that it affords us, that we are able to steer our mind into it being a conducive condition for the developing of loving kindness, compassion, etc. And so it's very, very important. And so understanding that this, of course, is one thing. And putting it into action is not easy for a beginner. But all that can be offered here is, of course, that there's nothing that does not become easier through habituation. So we do it once, twice, 3 times, it will start to become easier for us. We will become to be more quick to spot the opportunity, more skilled in being able to apply the opportunity. And so it's very important. And like I gave you that example of the child learning to walk, and that they stumble, they get up and fall and stumble so many times before they eventually kind of get enough balance to stand on 2 feet. And we have to understand that they're able to do this through practice, through habituation, and because they have that innate capacity to be able to walk. And so we have to understand too that even though it's difficult for us now, we also have that innate capacity to be able to become very skillful at being able to see all of the instances of life as conducive conditions for Dharma, because also they are backed up by valid reasoning. And this is also something that gives us more conviction, whereas the anger and so on, and the despondency is not backed up by valid reasoning, because it is predicated on a mistaken premise at the beginning. And so we have to understand that if we continue, if we are consistent and persistent and being able to steer our mind towards the Dharma and more and more and more, and then we eventually will become like the great Bodhisattvas, who kind of like, this is just a way of life. And that, in the beginning, yes, we have problems, but if we have faith in the process, if we have conviction in the process, if we are able to, really dedicate ourselves towards it, we will see significant transformation.
다 계속 다니 저 코나도 사토벌을 내가서 콘도 사고를 남나다 다도 그 두명 코나 요마르스 공부하기로 와. 그러나 나라도 콘도 사에서 내라고도 코나도로 다 오다 콘도도 사고를 다 사고를 남나 오다 콘도도 사고를 믿고.
So one way of exemplifying the difference between us and the great the Bodhisattvas at these high levels, that for us, anger arises very quickly at the drop of a hat, doesn't it? But for the Bodhisattvas, if you told them to be angry, they would be kind of stumped at to go, what could I possibly have anger at? They wouldn't be able to see any reason for it.
Because this Saba, social negotiate can go.
Yeah, so they know that if anger arises, it's only harming themselves.
당가라쪽에 콘도저 사원데 아니 콘도스 지가서 소소로 내가 친구가 몽몽 로아데 로 단단도 뭐저 너고도 슬랍데 콘도저 사원데 내가 친구 요말 봐 내가 친구 말해 근데 콘도 사서는 소소로 pen고 입에 나와 차대기도 와 파저들 갑자기 작은 입에 나와 차대기도 와 왔다 되래 다가 저 거저 너라 다 마리베 온게 몽네 아니 뭐유 내주 친구 요말 봐 당고가 뉴크다 건가 뭐유 내주 마시는 와 so nyokta kanga ngoyu ke nesu ma sha cha ni nyokta de yong to to ta ngoyu ke nesu shina ko nyokta min do
And so from our point of view, of course, we kind of like put a value on anger instead of saying, oh, I have to be angry, it's going to help me, it's going to say beneficial, and it just shows how much we are clouded really by ignorance with regard to the actuality of any given situation. If we can't see the actuality of a situation, sure, we're going to make major clangers like putting a value on anger like that. But if we see the actuality of the situation, we would never choose to be angry.
Yeah. And 릭시라다 서바 공부에서는 대대 정말 쉬워라기도 sometimes 나와 지금 뭔가 용도도 봐. 다 서바 공부를 하면 다들 말로 정하라 그래. 대대도 그거 듣고 그래 sometimes.
And so the other side is, you tell people that you need to meditate on patience, they immediately go, oh, that's a weakness, and patience there, that's not going to be any benefit to me at all. I can't see anything good in that at all.
야, 직전에 뭐마저가 제일 인그래. 뭐마저가 전에 차티고요. 다 뭔가 말이 봐. 왔다 뭔가 래. 그래서 서바 검세도 가래 동에때는 동에 캔에 됐으고요 말와. 서바 검세도 동에들한테는 뭐지바 마소 쓰고요 봐다. 이게 들어왔다.
And so of course it's understandable in a way, because it's something that can be easily misunderstood. There's a certain cloudy ignorance with regard to what a patience looks like. For some, it looks like just that you have to sit and take it, whatever people do to you. And of course, that's not patience at all. Patience is that when you are able to act without any unhappiness, any disturbance of the mind. There's no unease of mind, that you keep that sense of well-being and calm within, but it does not prohibit you from taking action.
서바 검세도 미파저 동안 가르 제바 있네. 다 동안에 캔에 빼다 삼로 가야 매번 이제 대스가 말봐. 다 남주그 때문에 아니 동네에 매번 써야 돌아 서답자. 서 문도는 아니 들들 막기와 맞아봐 전에 아니 땅돌래네. 다 레자다 된다 삼로 땅돌래네. 안디가네 즉다 대행을 주반에 시잖니 심제신 그 동네 같은 예도 고쳐 봐서 아니 잡아다 니지 기에다 된들 배주 땅고를 쓰고 열어. sungu yorba sungu yormado 동네 켄다 가서 동네 데 아니 가서다 가서 동네 중에 아니 데 가서 동네 용에 대해서 동네 셋업 맞지 sungu 요 말와 아니 서바 공에 대해 동네 셋업 저와 서바 공에 코나 동네 셋업이면도 그 동네 가서 데 동네 망도 써야지 마라 그러와 서바 공에 코나 동네 셋업 자되기도 와
And so, when we are, say, something is happening so that we are suffering, that it's not a case of just having to take it all, like just to stop and stay and take it. What's going on is a great deal of analysis within one's own mind in order to be able to accept that suffering. So initially you're going, or how can I, eradicate this suffering right now? What can be done and proactively to overcome this suffering right now? If the answer is nothing at the moment, then you work on this accepting of what's going on for you. You put it into the context of, cyclic existence. It is the negative karma that's resulting in this experience of suffering now. And then you follow on the logic of that, then I will not engage in such negativity again in the future. Also, I'm focusing on all sentient beings at this point, and that their suffering may all ripen upon me now in the context of this suffering now. And so you're transforming that situation into something highly valuable, a highly conducive situation to be able to, and then you can again bring in the emptiness part of it if you like as well. All of that is kind of something that is a can do. So there's a great deal of inner work going on to be able to counteract what's occurring at the time. Because after all, what the practice of patience, the perfection of patience is focused on is eradicating suffering, not adding to one's suffering. And so this is kind of like to be understood. And so therefore, that's the way one's thinking needs to be directed if one is practicing patience.
或者他这种个这个宽容啥呀的这个的，那社保公司的个，那的开的公司的个，三个做单个那最要或者辛苦多，三个做单个那最要或者嘛些呢，那我嘛做不中国多。是吧？那三个做单个那最要或者的社保公司的，那东海输出的东海没把说过的辛苦多。宽容啥话的东海输出的是东海那忙的说呀的，木头的东海用来居住过有把的，辛苦多。可他三个做单，三个老几个做单的，要不嘛些嘛呢？那我这个么多，出啥的能出的多。
So it's really important for us to understand the psychology of what's going on here. That in terms of anger and patience, and what's to be gained and what's to be lost. And so we can see here, it's all due to the way our thinking is going. It's the way we kind of place our thinking. So, for example, here, we understand patience. Patience is geared at reducing and eradicating suffering. Anger is geared at increasing increasing suffering and leads to the continuation of suffering. So we have to see which is really, what we want, which is really more valuable to be able to cultivate in one's mind. So it's the thinking process. It all comes down to how we place the mind. What thoughts are we putting one in front of the other that is going to lead to patience or happiness, or anger, and to make the right choices each time.
他看到的做了，那希望你们帮我来别培育呢，啥的，你们帮我来别培育呢，早晚两，你们那么的预见才能那把忙啥，当然他们这开始呢，现在拉说他怎么拉啥，但他给这把握的，他们说了是吧？我是。
So back to the text, we're looking at a fourth outline, which talks about the benefits of really striving to overcome the mental afflictions. And we look at the second half of verse 19 and verse number 20, where it says, "For when war is being waged against the disturbing conceptions, much harm is caused at the time of battle. The victorious warriors are those who, having disregarded all suffering, vanquish the foes of hatred and so forth. Common warriors slay only corpses."
Konchok so nyomo namda yu geba seta nyomo ge shangda yu geba na yu geba tsena noba mongbo ta jiga kange mongbo te yongbo la jikden ge ta tsuyon poba la suwa dunga keto sene ana jiga ta jiga rangi kapde tala suwa pawo soba te pawo jena te pawo res ta wata ko hero res lagira lusim ge dunga keto sene ta so so jiga dunga mongbo yongbo de keto sene shedan la suwa nyomo be ta shedan la sobe di kunela nyomo be da joba de nyomo de da ore da ganja gasa de kedo sene da ganja da jone tik jeba da sewa la sowa de le jone pawo sigirwa da di pawo sigir de di ko sena ma sena nimaji sigires 다 오늘 저거 녀모라 갑대 있잖아요. 동에 다 저거 당보 내 당보가 가서 동에 준비 연구를 간삼 전에 그 동에 매와 차도래. 그 뭐유게 내주 시원데 아니 거제 동에 매와 차네. 내 당보가 가서 무슨 건배 온게 강에 채되고 요와. 대다 동에 캐도 세네 셔달라서 봐 녀모베다 줘봐데 녀모 대다 개월 제발라 내월 봐오셔. 어때 녀모 될래 개월 녀모디 상황도 마도네 개월 빠오네 되레스. 나 남중 어제 좀 마자 녀몽을 샤완도 전에 아니 거 바오스에다 어제 직대 몽배 온게 바오스다 문에 바오 말했어 거 세나마세나 니마지 시도 그랬어 다 야고 삼라다는 로직 세셔버 소치랬어 문에 시도게 제 양조 다 시도게 제 아니 소저 세이스 바오 민켄 저점도 거 문에 바오도 말해 바오 문에다 녀몽 좀 두근들라 녀몽을 갑자기 자동도 바오서 하마 하마 아살 하마 마세장 난게서 다지 마세와는 니마치 갈리갈리 전에 고경과처럼 시도그래 기보서와 되는 롤러서와다 켜면 다 정보 삼로다는 로서와다 켜봤게 요 말했어 대군에 바오게 뭐에도 차고 말서 바오문에도 녀모라 갑대잖아 녀모가 샤완도 맞고 맞잖아 바오문에서 뭐 어디래 어디서 어디자.
So these verses really distinguish, the kind of hero of violence versus an actual hero. They're saying here, like anger and the other mental afflictions are like waging a war, but and so much harm can occur at that time. But in a worldly sense, that when one is engaged in a battle and one may be injured and so on, and I have to kind of really put up with the suffering there. But through that, and putting up with that suffering, one kills the enemy. One is referred to as a hero. But if we disregard the suffering of body and mind, and as a result of that, we are able to destroy the enemy of the mental afflictions, such as anger and hatred and so on, that overcoming of the mental afflictions is the action of a real hero. And it's saying here that the others in the battle, they, even though they do the killing, eventually they're going to get old and die anyway. So it's like they're killing a corpse, And so here it's saying the distinguishing between somebody who's, in a worldly sense referred to as some sort of hero isn't really a hero at all, but one who's able to overcome their own mental afflictions well, that's worthy of being called a real hero.
동네 모두는 동네 그 규주 줍자 아니 가라서 다 시고지 히로인 된거 열대 다고 저거 몽배 온 거래도 왔다 문에 전에 그 히로 문에도 파지그 랑이 녀몽데 추드는 녀몽의 상황도 마땅한 임바이나 아니 거 저거 that never the Tatu Gangala Panto any good to you in Satako, Hiromune Tires. So that what the chat. About Tunga Gombe, pay Gaba Shevan is our lesson. Share Tunga, you and then go at was Sewacha, Cobble and Ninja, Tila Kela Kacha.
And so that one who acts like through violence and is, can be referred to as a hero is really only creating a continuous causes for suffering in the future. Whereas, somebody who's the real hero is somebody who is not falling under the control of their mental afflictions, but is by controlling them able to really be a benefit for themselves and for all other sentient beings into the future. The fifth of those outlines saying an extensive explanation as to the benefits of habituating to suffering. Verse number 21 states, furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled. Compassion arises for those in cyclic existence. Evil is shunned and joy is found in virtue.
What the Takaja Reta, she had Dungan des, Nemi Sabe, Junde Nesata, Dungagi, Dungadi, Nemi Sabe, Junde, Rangi, Dungagi, on the Juate, Rang Dungag on the Juate, and Kibu Shabadia, Shabala, and Chikaso data, Nashuji into the Najema, Najaya, Rod Najeta, so she would into the Samlut Macha, Jabe, Jagua. Jagua Sewa Chabata. She had Dungan now a tona, Ra Dunga de Noise, the Jumze to Jetta Dungas, the Kaya to us on Tone, that are there and there, and she had Dungan now at the Misu Niji. Dungan de as a Miguel, that Dungan de, and Rota Narado, and it's missing the Namju as a Jumze Samutan Jobas, and Dungan de Kalitan or Miguel. Latin Yongotos, Titone, and it Diba Miguel Lela, and Tachi Yumodos Zemjechi. And they were given to Buton, or that there was second, or called to make him a remondo, call Rang Ring to be Culeum, the Ring to be Q, and Gawa Latene, Gawa Latin Yongoto, there's a Gawa La Gawa, you may Gawa to be a Kawachunga, then the Yongotes, then the Insa, and the landing and Namsal and Yabanye, then the Pando Yongotes. Rota, Dunga Jungati, and the Dunga de la Misuba Kene, Rota Dunga di, like Nimi ten, Dunga di, that was a quiet Marasu in a Dunga Dugumarwa, Nimi the tenor, and that dilla tenor, that Dunga Jungati, Yundeka Younger Santa, Nimi the tenor, that Yundene, a rangi Dunga de Dunga de la tenor, and so she was in the Nage Mageta, and the Chigi, what the day Kaba Younger, and it or then the social shifting into the Jaquatia cigarette. And it Delatena Shen, Tangar to Quaba is a mission by Tennessee to Nana Yorba, Delatena, and Niji get to what a Yungutu. And it Tungeti and Miguel Walling, but the water Yungutu. Tibet will attend a Yongate, and it gave us the Digis and they gave it to William Batilla, and it gave out to real Kumache take it to something. What today me Namji because Suda to a Pejutangi, and it Tungela Tene, Tunga Jungala Tene, and Kebenja Yores, Uyobata, Kebenja Yores.
And so this then verse details the benefits that we can see from thinking about suffering, and saying here, even though like the fault of suffering, when we reflect on it, we can see many qualities to it. One is to, just being despondent by the suffering that we are undergoing. It kind of it deadens this sense of arrogance or pride that we can go around with, go through life with, and it gives us a more realistic viewpoint. And especially when it comes to the suffering that we experience ourselves, we can see then in others going through similar suffering, and that gives rise to compassion from our point of view, for their suffering, for being unable to bear it, because we can tell from our own experience what it must feel like. And likewise, when we understand suffering as being the result of negativity, then we can go, well, I will now avoid negativity. I will have an aversion towards negativity from here on in. And conversely, when we see that it's happiness is the result of virtue, we have a renewed enthusiasm for engaging in virtue. So in this stead, we can see that suffering itself, when we reflect on it, it gives us a clearer conviction in the law of cause and effect itself as well. And so these are all benefits to being able to reflect, skillfully on suffering.
어들 다저 로아 답에 동해 되게 님이 셰 아니 동해 되게 주갈에 때는 용거 대 셰바체 동해 뒤어 동해의 님이 셰 온데 님이 셰 온데 아니 동해 생겼다 고교 뭐 교르바다 되죠 왔다 될 때는 아니 저게 랑 가서다 나게 좀 해야 된다 코펜도 중고 요래라 아니 시부진도도 저 샬라 통주 제대 용거 말랑 동해 나와서 샬라 통주 제대 용거 말해 왔다지 개바도가 왔다 대대네 이마자 아니 닝제 게레 팽거도 왔다 가자 동해데 미도바 인자 동해데 근에 용거도 대도 아니 거 랭이 바사바다 된데 용도 어느 거 저기 아니 셴 동해 나왔던 줄에 닝제 게 된데 용거도 거 동해서도 다 미소바 슈셔 모르자 강내리자 삼사제도 거 용도도 아니 어데레 다 아니 저 대줄 주 미게와라 다 동해데 거 가서도 랭이 바사바도 랭이 바티 다 사주문도 삼사들라 지가서 다 같이 마사라 은 점선지 어다디 디셔바 가리가리 랭이 바이메 다 고바체 로다 지금 미게와 주 미게 주 로다 미게 주 루이코네 미게와 나코네 미게와 이코네 미게와 근데 사기도 아니 데데게 때네 아니 데다 사바이나 아니 데 릭토베 아니 제부 가리도 제부 미데바 가리온 것도 어다데 아니 딜란 세메주 용거와 용거로한다 아니 가서다 디기스 근데 엔디기 조 개발했다는 아니 개발되게 돼 근데 스토고도 오다 아니 좀다 딜레어 좋아게 제 용거와 오다 간제 되게 디 여발할 때네 디 여발할 때는 랑라 그 동해 여발할 때는 랑라 편도 여발다 편도 그다 저 가서다 동해세 다 아니 대화 두비게 편도 여발제 다 용거도 와다 디인사 디송도 와 어디래
So this verse is really talking about really knowing the faults of suffering, and that then we can see the lessons that we learn from it, really. And the first of those is, of course, that it reduces our sense of haughty arrogance and pride, that because we have received these certain blows and sufferings, that we have a more realistic view of life. And that we also start to look into how does suffering occur. It has causes assigned to it. It's these negative causes, negative karmas, and as a result of that, we can see that this is how it was generated. And so we start to be able to apply that newfound knowledge to our own situation, and then to be able to relate it to others. And when we see suffering in others, we can sense this unbearable compassion that arises, because we know that the same problems that they face have faced in the past, the same mistakes that I've made in the past, and that one is informed and broadened in one's attitude, so that one reacts or responds with compassion in situations like that. And likewise, that one has a whole new attitude towards non-virtue, these unskillful actions, because we see that actually suffering is something that arises on the basis of these negative causes caused by non-virtuous actions. And that we have informed ourselves, as it were, and thereby, we really will now start to avoid non-virtue. We have a certain aversion to all those actions that go along with non-virtue. And similarly, on the other side of the coin, we have a new appreciation for virtue, because we know that virtue is behind all the happiness that we experience. And so we have a much clearer kind of like path on the basis of all that suffering that we have experienced, that we're much more determined to avoid non-virtue. We're much more enthusiastic about accumulating virtue.
What the Kanjaja Tunga Sunga so the Rangi Nyomu de Chigitwa, Chiloga to get the Keredwa, Raken Chigitwa. And the Rana Kangan Tawati, Rana Kangan Tawati, Kangan the Tunga Tawati, because of the Tigi Tunga Chigitu and Midu Second, and Dilata Ranga Nyomo Keta Maja Ralikitwa. But Rana Digi Junga Imba in a Rangula Nyomo Jasana, they don't get you to Butua. Rana Dunga Junga Imba in a tea, Nyomo Magieva Chene, and Dilatene, and the Chig Dunga or Dilenia Basa Sabat and the Chol Lenya Basaju do something, Chiglandel and Yavanieta, Dilatene Kawa to be a cheto, Yandi Dunga Junga, the Dunga Jula Machin, the Gavagula Trotikitua. That is a Nyomola Ramata Matella Tene, Cotunga Juda Devacular Tomato Chatikua.
So that, we have this clear link now between our suffering and how it has arisen by through our own mental afflictions. It's not anything in outer conditions or anything else. We can't point the finger anywhere else. It's down to our own mental afflictions. So we have this understanding that the problems we have, whether they prompt mental affliction or not, is down to us, and that this is we have a renewed conviction in the law of cause and effect because of suffering, because we can see the direct correlation between the suffering we experience on the one hand being coming from the non-virtue that we have accumulated, and the happiness that we experience on the other coming from the virtue that we have accumulated. So we can make now much more kind of informed and much more useful demarcations between the non-virtue that we avoid on the one hand versus the virtue that we really go after on the other hand.
Niba Asa Niba Chula Gabar Sebe Sobacobala Nisha, Gabar Sheba the Tentua, Tambola Sum, Gabar Sheba de la Sumsa, Toa Jan So, the Jula Ralebe, Rawacha Mayino Osa, Rawanchengi Juyoba Kabacha. Anna Toa Tobe Koba Water, Tambo, a Toa Jan So, Jula Ralebala, Rawacha Mayin Batilla, Nichen. Toa Jinja Kansa, Rawacha Mayimba. Data is a Juja Rawacha Mayimba Wacha. And the Toa Jinja Kansa, Rawacha Mayimba Della, Sumjen, Nomo Jin, because Nomo Jinjas, Gibula Toa, Miribe Junsen. So Toa duration to give a Mayimba. As I never Tata as I get let you a Rawa Meba was Meba Wacha. Sumjet that when your more jingy as I give all a tour, Meribe Junzen and your more jingy give all a tour, Meribe Junzen, then when the Zawa Lesa, we get what is Geshe.
And so the next main outline is the habituating to the mind of patience through gaining conviction in the Dharma, the patience of gaining conviction in the Dharma. And this has got two subheadings. One is a more extensive explanation, and then a summary. And in the context of the more extensive explanation, there are three subheadings. The first of these is that the anger, as well as the one who is angry, are arising in dependence upon causes and are not independent entities. Secondly, that refuting the existence of an independent cause. And thirdly, the necessity of really opposing anger. Then the first of those three, that is that the causes of anger and the one who is angry arise in dependence upon causes and are not independent entities, that has two subheadings. So I was saying here that the anger and the person who is angry are not, let's say, self-governing entities. And the second is that the causes and conditions of that anger and that angry person are likewise not self-governing or independent entities. And then with regard to the first of those two, there are three subheadings. The first is the reasoning why anger is incorrect towards the person who is angry. Towards the deluded person. I'll say that again. The reasoning for why anger is incorrect towards the deluded person. And the second is the second of these is then that there is say no case for anger to arise naturally. And thirdly, there is so since though all faults arise in dependence upon conditions, they are also lack any independent existence.
我的这他牛梦境界是牛梦境界给我了超米的规矩，真的是牛梦境界。牛梦境界给我了是超米的规矩，真的找我来是。提我老说我是，提我老说东南界中南吃了米超我是，身边那么记得着。但到关键境界关，本来米对新对象，你的中华就话的，但是米对新对象，你就牛梦中华就是。
And so, so we're looking at the first of these in verses number 22 and 23. And the first of these again is the reasoning why it's incorrect to generate anger at a deluded person. Verses number 22 and 23. As I do not become angry with great sources of suffering such as jaundice, then why be angry with animate creatures? They too are provoked by conditions. Although they are not wished for, these sicknesses arise, and likewise, although they are not wished for, these disturbing conceptions forcibly arise.
他感觉让了你把这根的，你把这根的。 给我了超米的个电视热的热，他感觉就，单单的是吧？特别牛梦扎生的牛梦境界看啥名词？特别给特别三个专门的牛梦了扎那个药的是，牛梦的这边看啥了扎那个药嘛的是，牛梦的这边看啥了你就几个药的，是吧？你就几个药的，他的人生你把给我了，穿了这个嘛的是，因为你把给。 그 녀몽데 라 교도다고 그랬어. 녀몽라 교도대. 그 녀몽게 온게 녀몽의 생활도 전에 그 내가 기가 열어 봐. 가사 고랄 닝지게 가서 가사 고란다 녀모디 온가 라와 메바차 닌자 근데 인자 다 제를 레그래 너밖에 지금 너밖에 와이나 콘게 라와 유네 너밖에 와라 라와 메네 너밖에 와래서 제바 지기나 라와 메네 너밖에 와다 뭐 저거로 고란 녀몽고 마샤네 녀몽 깨봐 임바이나 녀몽 깨봐 임바이나 라니 레 너바 용고도 왔어 라니 레 너바 용도 아니 샤라 너바 용하다 샤 먹어 왔어 샤 먹어 왔어
So, as the Buddha has said, that one must not be angry at one must not regard the person who harms as the enemy, but
투베 녀몽 다시게스 그라 투바상게 전대베 녀몽라 다다그레스 녀몽도 다레스 아니 녀몽다 데베 가사 다다그레스 다그 말레스 딜레 니제코 그레스.
So it's like that the Buddha has said that the mental affliction is the enemy, not the one who is the holder of that mental affliction. They should be the object of our compassion. And so in this case here too is talking about, that when we are, we have to separate the person from the mental affliction, and that the mental affliction is the thing at fault, but the person is the person worthy of our compassion. Because when somebody is controlled by mental affliction, they are not in charge in themselves. And so it's kind of like, we have to ask the question that when one is harming because of mental affliction, are they in control or not? And so the answer is that they are not in control, because even we can see that when people are under the control of mental affliction, they even harm themselves. So what need we speak that they might harm others?
order. That dinner is that Nujig Kibula Trot Medite, so that was my Teva Majan, Nujig Kibudilla Tronatic Marias Medite. Right, Togo Yovaina, and Rang the Penasoso Navaina Rangi. The rangi is a Tibata, Begala Soba Dunga June, Chabotilla, that rang in Nasa Jodo, Nasa de, Tapena was a Takasore, Bemenga Shuna Shera Bemenga Shuna, and the Tibata Lunda Began Sumde, Neg Junes, Neg Judas Sigorwa, Swan, and then is a Tibatan, Began so Dunga June, Chabotilla, Conto Sagum, Mitoa. 사금도 미조 전에 디 나서 속도 왔어. 디라 초금도 왔어. 다 너가 제가 심지질라 초거도 좀 생각했어. 심지게 기본나라 초 지대서. 지대 초 가르치는 초고였어. 아니 가르치는 초고였어. 좋아. 초 미리대 초날 지금 말했어. 미리대 내제게서 내제 대다 군장 너제 대다 군장 간사디 대다 군장 아니 가서래 용몸에 깽게 용구 요레스 페나 가서 치발라서 나자 되게 돼 거기서 콜라 초고요 맞아 콜라 초고에 저거 봐대 그가 랑게 용몸 군나란 레니 바살라 되는 용구 요레 너제 되게 랑라 너밖에 봐대 랑게 레니 바살라 되는 용구 요레스 그왜 콜라 라온 메베 대다 군자 용모베 켄체네 군이 용구도 왔어. 근데 이마이자 콜라라 라와면서 콜라 라와 메비체 콜라 라와면도 왔어. 근데 이마이자 콜라 촌나 지금이 도스. 치로서. 어디sla다.
So here it's saying that anger is inadequate or inappropriate towards the person who harms. And so here it's pointing out the reasoning there. That say we are sick, and in medicine, if you have an imbalance with your bile and winds and phlegm, they say that sickness arises. And so when that occurs, we don't get angry at the sickness, even though it can cause great suffering. So it's saying, why then can you justify being angry at animate beings? It doesn't follow. And so it's kind of saying when it's incorrect to have such anger, because the person who harms is is kind of like is forced through the conditions of their own mental afflictions, and become under the control of those mental afflictions. And so they are no longer free, as it were, to act independently. And so it's kind of saying here too, is the example is saying, although they are not wished for, these sicknesses arise, and although they likewise they are not wished for, these disturbing conceptions also arise. And so it's kind of saying here, because they are really arising, the kind of like the anger and so on of the one engaging in harm, and that they are kind of really kind of emphatically kind of like under the control of the mental afflictions. Therefore, there's no way we can have anger towards them. If we need to have anger at anything, it has to be anger at the mental affliction itself.
他感觉这个是的，我这个那把这个没这个多呢，没那什么这多呢，俺的那把介绍我就考虑啥个多是，但所说那啥中央的另外的让个龙这北京说不这个的，第二考虑啥个没多是，俺没了考虑啥个卡的是，是吧？他什么这了考虑啥个卡的是。 다 아니 롱제 베게 소로 가서 콘도 사고요 말에 코데 코 다다데 나라도 레냐 봐서 용모라 때네 내나서 되게 용고 요바서 콜 콘도 사고요 미도 왔다 딘네 시바이나 다는 민노바 계긴데 콜 콘도 사서 말서 코게 용모도 송게 콜랑게 용모도 송 오게 라오메 바자 고조 노바 계고 요레스 노바 계고 요레스 데 용모 도소 꾸네 아니 꾸네 임바자 콜랑레 라오메 베쳐 콜레 라오 요 말레스 안 된서 콘도 사서 유처모도스 배나 미드신도 배나 미드신도 규제 참여 원게 미드신도 규제 참여 원게 내대 연구도 와서 소소 다 소불 내나서 그래 내대 중화 딸 연구도 와서 진행 현재 대신도 미드신도 세다야 내제텔라 내제텔라 균년게 용모 온도 균에 좋아졌다 내제대 내제대 녀몽게 어서 녀몽 가서도 뇌제들라 균년기 녀몽 중화 교회에서 저는 가서도 다 크게 녀몽 뒤 온게 아니 뇌제들 라마메 봐서는 누구도 왔어 그게 걔랑 컨트롤 사고도나 녀몽을 컨트롤 사는 지금도 마다 가사들 컨트롤 사는 지금도 미리서 샤와 왔자.
So saying here, like these sicknesses that arise due to the imbalances of the bile, the phlegm, and the winds, and so on, can be, really harsh and so on. But we don't have anger at the sickness itself, even though we know that this arises. All sickness arises due to negative karma that has been accumulated by ourselves as well, and therefore, we should apply that same reasoning to the person who is harming, that we can't have anger at them, because not only are they under the influence of their own mental afflictions, but that the whole situation is arising due to my own negative karmas as well. And so here it's saying that we can't. It's incorrect to be angry at the person who is doing that, because they are exhorted by their own the conditions of their own mental afflictions, and so they're not in control. And so it's saying, likewise, the example of, even though we don't desire it to happen, due to when the causes and conditions are all complete and extant, then a sickness will arise. And so this is similarly, though we don't want it, that when the conditions arise, then anger and hatred and so on arise for the one who is harming, and they're kind of like really pressed by their mental afflictions to engage in that harm. And therefore, we can't be angry at them, but we ought to be angry at the mental affliction.
다 저는 그 녀모로 초고거든요. 간사대야 녀모가 라면 봐서는 제대로 그 나랑 돌려내 코로나를 뇌에 내가 리기요. 봐서 니가는 뇌에 내가 리도 다 모두 초거나 녀모들 저거도 뭐도 간사들 초나 지금은 도스 보다 대수온 것도 왔대. 다 되는서 녀모 쓰는데 그 내가 봐시 개개인 뭐 인상 아니 그 랑신 그 제례데 내가 개개인 제례 아니 들려되는 간사들 초나 지금도 왔다 뭐지 지난 레다 다 들어서 뭐 되는 것도 왔다 되면서 녀몽이 가르치는 연구 가서 가사도 소소 내게에 가르치는 내게서 코 녀몽의 상황도 주는 연구도 왔어. 다 녀몽의 상황 줘도 아니 그다 다 그네 이마다 다 줘서 버려. 가서나 녀몽의 상황 줘도 가사 코란을 내고도 와. 코란을 내봐 지금도 나라도 내봐다 다 용하다 항상 게임도 왔어.
And so make this distinction then to understand that that the mental afflictions in this case are only out to harm, and so they will harm that other person as well, the one who is actually harming, and that we can see that that person is not in control. They are under the control of the mental afflictions, and this is made very, very clear because we can see how people who are under the control of mental afflictions even harm themselves. So what's the big, there's no surprise that they would harm other people as well, such as me. So I can't be angry at them. They're not in control of what they're doing. They're under the influence of mental affliction.
어디지? 안 다가는 시게 다 로아카 코랑 제레 코랑 네게 제레다. 네게 제레들라 네게 제레들라다 베나 차차바이나 뭐저 지금 베나 로이네 된데라 삽사 맞잖아 로게 숏 지그러 왔다. 지금 로라 라바 갑도 상관은 로게 이네 들라다는 거저 막아 지금 말할까? 로게 삽사 맞잖아. 너그래 했어서 걸라도 삽사 제게 개쳐 버려. 로아 베나 추다 메다 가리 뭐이네 거기 숙제라서 건너기로 와. 매일에 매기 치기로 와. 매기 치기도 좀 매일 컨트롤 되게 말어 와. 매기 맞이에 답시도 치기로 와. 그러와. 매기 치기도 좀 매일 컨트롤 되게 말어 와. 그러와. 근데 매기 배주 가지 이번 거저 배주 단계에 소소 매대 맞이에 답시 치기로 와. 로그 야고 맞아 로그 숏 지기를 돼. 이나 로그 숏 지기 좀 컨트롤 되게 말어 와. 그래서 거의 랭게거나 숏 제 거를 제대로 와. 안 들라 먼저 가르쳐서 삽삽제에 개쳐 버려. 그러와. 그래서 샤마도 컨트롤 사사서 소소 컨트롤 사고에 좀 제요 말아. 이내 다 컨트롤 사는 컨트롤에 묘게 맞아 소소 삽삽제에 개쳐 버려.
So in the same way that we know that when something is likely to harm, such as anger, hatred, and so on, and that we have to be very careful around that. And let's say kind of a more natural instances, like say a short in an electrical kind of line. If we kind of touch that, we're going to get an electric shock. And so it's something that we don't get angry at. We just take care to avoid that. Same with boiling water or fire. Its nature is to burn, so we take care to avoid it. We don't get angry at it for its own nature. And so anger is like this as well. We have to just take care around that, not to react to it.
어디래? 다들 들라 막아봤지. 컨트롤산에 대면 봤지. 딱 가르쳐서 내가 대 소설 마주에 답지도 제거로 와. 이내 들라 컨트롤산 대와 이내 다 라는 너기도 와. 뭐서 매게 치기도서 뭐서 컨트롤산 대와 이내 다 소설 마주 도적으로 와. 같이 가. 어디래다?
So it's kind of like really avoiding harm if we can. But if harm is inevitable, then we must avoid getting anger at that harm, And it's kind of like, if we simply fall into the pit of anger because of harm, then it's just like getting angry at the fire for burning us. It's kind of like really something that we can do without, and we should be able to do without.
어디래? 다들 이마지사 오다 멜라 삽사치고 다 멜라 삽사 맞으나 매게 치기르다. 가서 내추럴 코나 치게로 와. 컨트롤을 하고 나 컨트롤사나 오다 소소 삽사 맞으나 뒷녀그래서 하고 봤잖아. 뒷녀바 마슈에 답지 저걸 만다. 아니 녀모 샤와도 라 녀모 샤와도 요나다 니가를 내면도 요마르바 니가를 내면도 요마르 와다디 뭐저 봐저 코 내저도 뭐치 봐잖아 아니 딜라 튕게 맞아네 딜라 튕게 자소나 아니 콘도슈 자다 랑레 콘도사 셰 콘도 녀모 딜라 녀모로 튕게 자나 라 녀모 기기도 다 딜라 튕게 맞아나 아니 소설 내고면 도 디슨 거다 가자 뭐 여기 내주 틈에서는 아니 동해 맞아 대화 좀다 수고도
And so, like, just as we would say, be careful around fire, don't touch fire, avoid it, and just be very, very wary around it. We should also establish the same sense of care and around anger and hatred and these kinds of attitudes, to be very, very careful, because anger is not only harmful to oneself, but can be harmful to others as well. And so we should be also aware of the kind of conditions that are kind of accumulating within that can give rise to the flame of anger, and to be very, very careful to not allow them to arise. So it's kind of like really understanding the actuality of the situation. Like it's the nature of anger, the nature of fire is to burn, but it's the nature of anger to destroy yourselves and others.
어디래 내내 이마자 뭐서 매게 지기도서 콘로사는 되게 말때 매 마시가 탑시다 매디 배주 딱딱 당기려 봐 진내 강사시 그 콘로사는 콘디션도 라라 내가 잡아나 라디 콘로 되게 내가 마수 받잖아 내가 마용 왔잖아 아니 강사 뒤에 콘로사와 디 아니 랑게 배주 당시 받자 딜라 잡아고 왜 이제 거매 그러와 아니 콘디션 통해 수배 편의 통해 올라 소와 되게 안데 배주도 당시만 제발 그 매다 찍어라 매디 배주 당시는 먼저 변도도 와 매들 콘도산데는 그 변도가 면도 와
So it's like when we are faced with fire, we take care around that fire, we make sure that the fire doesn't spread, we are able to make use of the fire in the most efficient way, etc., etc. Anger is the same, is very same. When we experience anger in ourselves or in others, we have to make sure that it is not going to cause any harm. We use that situation of anger to increase our love, increase our compassion, and especially if it's anger in another person. That we to see the faults of anger more clearly, therefore see the benefits of patience more clearly, and this is the proper way to use the situation of anger. And so in that way, not allow it to overcome us or overcome another, and to be able to have the right attitude to even another person who is angry at us. And so we leave it there for today. So again, bring our minds to what we have visualized in the space in front.
아니 가서데 동해를 맞대바체 동해 교회 잡아두제 동해를 맞대바체 서서 공부하셔 안 딜레 타베 다 딜레 마타나다 타메도 서는 공부하셔네 녀바 줘 년중주 공부하셔 안 데데 녀바 줘 년중데 랑게 주고 뼈마담 잡아체 교수 삼사체 다 지난 거 조건데 주바 있네 유대는 줘봐도 뒤자요 말에 가려서는 그 때내 중화를 와서 때내 중화에도 그 유대는 말이면 다된 거 열어서 커다 좋아서 공부하시는 유대 가자가 잠들 셈도 샤 아니 되게 동반인 예배 로티 랑게 주고 님의 주고 냐가와 교수 삼사체 다 좀전 된데 임바지자 그 때내 중화에도 아니 지가서데 저 중화인도 다 간제 저 년중的장주선의 양답에 따와도 좋겠네 그래서 사주 랑아 랭글라고는 그 산제 고마서 텐데 주비에도 다 텐데 주비에 여와 있는데 맞는데 지금도 다 뉴도 산제 고마 맞도 타면도 타바 지금 삼사 공부하시네 아니 텐데게 아니 그래서 다 dum바디 Dumbate or similar Sanja Koma Tuba Chiki, Maton Tom, New Tuba, the Nego Dumbate are directing when Yakawache and Nimaking go to Neso, some such. But there's a Lama with Tagachu of the Karakuso to your motor, so that Tambicos of Pet, Nibacos of Show, so attention Sanja Koma Mato with the Chess so that any Yalato manager what the chap.
So we begin the dissolution then by inviting Guru Buddha to the pre-prepared seat that we will establish on our own crown. First of all, by reflecting on the subject of renunciation, knowing that this cyclic existence is in the nature of this suffering. It is manifested by the suffering, the suffering of change and pervasive suffering, and knowing that I need to gain definite emergence from this state of suffering, giving rise to the notion of renunciation. This is symbolized by the lotus mandala seat on our crown, that all internal and external phenomena are lacking any objective existence, even at the atomical level. They are merely imputed, and to bring us to the point of gaining the fixed meditation on the mere negation of the object of negation, and this giving rise to that which symbolizes the wisdom of emptiness, the moon disc mandala seat. And because of the renunciation of the correct view of emptiness and so on, that we realize that phenomena are generated dependently, arising in dependence on causes and conditions and so on. Therefore, I can set my sights on the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, generating the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, which is symbolized by the moon disc mandala seat. And then we utter the invocation verse thrice. So, glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestowing me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first time, the Buddha Guru moves from the space in front towards our crown. At the end of the second, they have arrived there. At the end of the third recitation, we have the certainty that they will remain until we attain the state of enlightenment. And we rejoice in that fact and spontaneously offer the 7-limb practice and mandala.
Then da ka je yanjo komba shene ngenjo komba shejo cha hotel chen ana rang ning de pema da je le ju so sam sa cha ana chena ga chona yu de to tu sa yo ma le san ko da chu komba she on hotel ani de ge niebe lote go so de to ma niebe lote ani je ka so de ran ni pema da je di de to ana ni me jong nya kan ju so da sim je tham je ge do san je ko nyo ni do ma da to me do 토바 지기 삼사 고바시 된데 그 dumate 다외 좀 약간시는 님의 때도 내서 선서 되는 반대서 라마를 뭐지 다기 니가 배면 되죠. 그래서 고소도 좀 무저 자도서 되는 순대 잡을때 저번에 마 진짜는 랑 가서 라마 샤자스게 저번에 뭐 세게 나봤잖아. 랑이 저번에 뭐 전에 아니 담배 가서 니가 가서 쇼스 때는 산재 고마 마도 보다 제 순수 되는 배마다 이제 가족은 남주 닝내다지 제가 도지하고 생각을 하자. 뒤 타고도 아니 또 배상아 다이도 문을 다이도 문을 되지 그 숨지 거 되겠지. 맞아서 뭐 숨을 거 되네. 주제 잡아야 순간 오마라바자 나디디디디디디디디서 좀 숨을 거 되겠지. 아니 되네. 된데가 순간 오마 예다만 순간 샤마나에 소 된데 좀 숨을 거 되겠지. 된데 유서 라바샤자 생겨서 어떻게 쇼차 아니 저번에 간디고 세트에 아니 통화매 받는 세베 디버트 개발도야 딱까지 지금 미개 주부 수련도 개발해서 왔다 다 엔제베 하나 라식 하나 맞대베 아니 세대 생각 통화면서 디버트 나니니 봐 장쳐서 쳤어 장치 다바 중수 상자 되는 소소답에도 와 자주서 라 상하다가 파다 말라 먹고 저서 꾸준히 돈을 토려 타바 여주 예동의 처지저 왔다 봐 장치 다바 중수 상자 어디에 공부하셔
So then we establish the same seat on our own heart center prior to inviting the Guru Buddha down from the crown to our heart center. And so this again, from contemplating on renunciation, the lack of any, the whole suffering element within cyclic existence, giving rise to the lotus mandala season. all outer and inner phenomena lacking any objective existence even at the atomical level, and that are merely imputed by thought, giving rise to the sun disk mandala seed. And then the possibility inherent in the dependent nature of all phenomena, allowing for our aspiration to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, giving rise to the moon disk mandala seed. And so then again, reciting the invocation verse thrice, so glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moonseed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. The figure of Guru Buddha moves from down through the crown chakra, down through the central channel, and comes to reside at our pre-prepared seat. And again, we rejoice at this point in the fact that the Buddha will remain until we attain the state of enlightenment ourselves. And so then the petals of the lotus fold over and are joined at the tips by a 5-pronged white vajra, are surrounded by 3 mantras: the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction. And from within, then light petals begin to emanate from the heart center of the Guru Buddha, and then they pervade through all the cells of our bodies, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet, and purifying all negativities and obscurations that have been accumulated since beginningless time, including all of the negativities associated with the 10 non-virtues of negativities that have been accumulated during this life and the life previous to this one, going back to beginningless time. All of the naturally occurring negativities and all those activities proscribed by the Buddha, all negativities associated with the breaking or the damaging of vows, be they Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, or Bodhicitta vows, tantric vows, and then the any negativities associated with a lack of respect from our parents right up to our gurus, all of yes, all those particular negativities.
다간에 신경 추트베 개개 루게 나자 생게 동에라 소바다 근데 저 다지 조지 코마니 와 자롱 틸리 견 근데 저 대다다 바짱 다바 중소스 아니 라바도야 다 뉴도 산제 코마 토발에 견 치셔데 아니 타메가 나신 바지 타메 나시 견 탑자 가나타자 다바란 잡아지 작도가 야고 중소 선저 고바시.
And then also the all the negativities that result in obscurations to our being able to engage in skillful Dharma practice, be it illness, disease of the body, likewise sickness of the mind, all of the imbalances within our channels, winds and drops, or in the 4 elements of the body, and so all of that which is standing in the way of our being able to practice the Dharma. And likewise, the main obstacle to our being quickly able to attain the state of enlightenment being that of ordinary appearance. We swap for a pure appearance.
안에 되네 나 소소 신도 저가 롱데 녀래자 라마샤야세 고데 렌제 지금 소소르데 라마샤야세 고라 조소 소소 신도 저가 셈데 녀래자 라마샤야세 투데 렌제 지금 소소 셈데 라마샤야세 투라 조소 랑이 룽아 유서 라마샤야세 고소도 오 이메 조소 섬사지바 태좀 매바 공바시 오 이메 조소 섬사지 디 대와도 대외 동바제 동바디 대외 And then
through the combination of my own more subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of Buddha. And through the combination of my own more subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of Buddha. Then I have the certainty of my own body, speech, and mind is now being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. This is beautiful. It brings forth a sense of bliss, which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
rāngi nēsā kā nē tēyā nē wī kiñ tāñcā tā lāma shācā sāngā tāwē shīntu kyōsū samsā tā rāng lāma shācā sāngā tā kūsōng tūpa ngō yīmē kyōwa tī nāla rāngshī mē bā sūkhumbā shē nāla rāngshī mē bā tī tūkā lē lāma shācā sāngā pātū mē bā chōne shīng rāng tā pātū mē bā chōne anī kāmsū kā simchā tāṃ chē lā anī lāma shācā sāngā chā sāngwā rē rē anī tīm tī tīmbā lā tēne anī tā simchā tāñcā kēchī kā lāma shācā sāngā kūsōng tūpa ngō yīmē kyōsū samsā tētā kā nē sā kā nē tētā chāncā nē wī kiñ tāñcā tēne lāma shācā sāngā tāwē shīntu kyōsū samsā wā simchā tāñcā 산지가 살아 라마 샤자 생가 살아 고기 쓰게다 다 니마들이 고도 소나 가고 아니 섬자 탐자 라마 샤자 생기 살아 고바 대저도 소소 개와 가리 줘봐 대 두고 소소 저가 유대의 마주봐 똑바 파다 잠래서 대 대화대 대도녀서 이시 계속 선사 고바샤.
And then the place that I'm in also is transformed of all fault and it turns into the enlightened abode of a Buddha. And then seeing myself as inseparable in body, speech, and mind from the Buddha, and also seeing myself as lacking any objective existence, I send out light waves equal in number to all of the sentient beings in all the 6 realms of existence. And upon dissolving into them, they are completely purified and arise as spontaneously as fully enlightened Buddhas. The place that they are in also is freed of all taint and fault and becomes the pure realm of an enlightened being. And this, again, is something that I completely rejoice in, that today is the day of being able to lead all the sentient beings to this state of enlightenment. How wonderful that is, that I can see that the leading of all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment, the virtue that has facilitated this, and myself as the agent of that virtue, all are completely empty of any objective existence and merely imputed by thought. This brings forth a sense of bliss, which again combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual wisdom and voidness. So when we talk about this bliss, it's not something that is just an appearance here. We're talking about that which arises from our meditation on emptiness. And again, it goes back and forth through the kind of understanding of emptiness into bliss, back into the voidness and so on. And that even though that we are operating just at the level of imagination here, we are trying to do this as sincerely as possible to lay down the more effective imprint as possible.
신도 차베 롱셈데 신도 차베 롱셈디 다 신도 차베 안에 가서데 다가제제 셈디 누가 렌지게 왜세게 셈디 안에 동반인 예수 섬사지 동반인 예네 동반인 예수 섬디 동반인 예베네 디 대화종 왜세게 셈디 동반인 예베 대화종 대화디 동반인 예수 왜세게 셈 다가를 봐 삼천 삼르탄 디니에서 삼사 삼르탄 다다는 것들이 배주 요 말에 배주 되고 요 말때 이나양 디지 가서 뭐가 이제가 소요 봐 겁니 바자 개발.
So this is that when we look into emptiness, and there can really are being conviction in the mere imputed nature of emptiness. this can give birth to a sense of bliss, which can bring us more into more and more subtle levels of mind, more and more subtle levels of consciousness, down to the most subtle wind and mind, and at this clear light level of mind. And we again bring our minds to focus on emptiness, and emptiness then of really understanding this kind of mere imputation, that gaining conviction, which gives rise to the bliss, which again allows us to focus again on the mere imputation of emptiness and so on. And knowing that we're only doing this now at the level of imagination, of course, but to really imagine it as clearly as we possibly can to lay down the most effective imprint.
디 동반인 예수 삼사잖아. 아니 바디지 동반인 예수 데 랑게 레 냠바사베 바자 강가 디강 샤샤오레. 겨왕같이 탐제를 조건들이 다른 레딥 단 산지가 살아 거에 줘야 산지가 투 속인데 투뭐 조건데 되래. 심지가 내가서 아니 저 겨와 담만달래네 겨왕에 걔네 레스 다 상에 나서 디케는 다 디던도 바자요래. 아니 레 냠바사바 바자 그 디던도 샤바 동반인 예네 딜로디 예네 바자도 잡아 동반인 그래서 랭에 바자도 잡아 짜수 삼사천 어떤 공부샤 셰토는 야부요 봐 어떻게 참
So it's on this level of mind, this clear light mind, where all of these negativities, all of these imprints of karmas lay down, and we see them identified it as emptiness. This is emptiness, and so you can say this is the mind that goes from life to life, and that we are identifying here this is as emptiness itself, and laying down imprints so that we can actually experience this directly.
So
all of the karmas that we accumulate are laid down at this most subtle level of mind, most subtle mind.
What can you diquata? Did what the Pacha Shava di Mata you some compassion? But I was a diquata, Japan Ijasa and a college. Did you do Rangi Namshe Tomo tea candle? Cancer, you want to say same tea color. Because Shava Pacha to Mata treasure and same Taga Rangi and Tone D and it Benata Ijasagina and the Dodgy some same D commit. Same D comni. Dodge some comni. And it does simple the comte Jenny and Chicas about the Jibatai Jola. What the compassion was same D. Meva Ijig so want to do it. And it D Tone Takacha compassion.
So it's when we're purifying our negativities, of course, then this is the level at which we're trying to purify when we're reciting the 100-syllable mantra, for example, that at this level. And so it's kind of saying here, this point at the mind itself, that we're trying to purify and get rid of these negativities. And so when we're kind of like doing this, acting at this kind of level of imaginative aspiration, that we are focused at this level of the mind, it would be very good.
What did it do? Tanda want to be by Eje, so long as Tanda Kai did the Lela with the choir. In a young, that Tanda some town one nation, Winakura did a yoke, and a Juritua show, study young a lot of culture, Ran Sanja Kumatobutua, Sanja Kumatola, and Tony Nijini with your lamp to let you. That they just sang a Jonas, Sana Donata, Dona, Niana, Karim. Sangha Gadecho and Tony Niji Nibuja Lamcula KVK and Tungian to Juasho, Kagan the Tungian to Juasho, so what the compassion watch at Willis.
And of course, we're operating at this level of imagination now. Of course, we can't pull this off just like that, but we're making a very sincere and determined dedication that it will happen, made manifest as quickly as possible. That these theories of emptiness and the mind of enlightenment that will be able to generate realizations as quickly as possible. And therefore, that whatever we do, whatever we're going, sitting and moving, or eating and drinking, whatever we're engaged in, that we may be able to see all of the what occurs for us and to us as conducive conditions for enhancing our understanding and deepening of our understanding and realization of the mind of enlightenment and emptiness, and that all inconducive conditions will be dispelled.
Lai ma san ye zhun yun do wai che da ma liu ba ye ye sa lai gu ba rai shui jan zhu Yan zhou ria mo jia ma jia ban Yan zhou roi jia kia ma nya ma me ma ya Guan ya gong du pia wa ra Shui dong ye da wa ria mo jia Ma kia pa na ma kia yoroi kia pa nya ba me ba ya con ya con ne wa rai shoi ga ri ra ve ko ve
Xin Kang De Ban
dan
Dan
da de ma le zhong ve ne jie
Chen
re
Rei Ji Gong
天间叫做也下边西边把天就来亲爱美爱美爱美爱美爱亲爱亲爱人爱亲爱亲爱美爱亲爱美我家美呀。Đại diện diện biểu tu diện tôn đạo lối san đại biệt sáng lai số văn địa miêu miêu diệu miêu Dear me, dear me, oh boy, John, yum, God, Jan, do dear God, Lord, and I. Chào lời số văn đẹp miêu miêu diệu việt diệu 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 miêu ô bùi gió miêu Đại diện biểu tu diện ngọc lô sai đại biệt đã lời số
You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not ended through existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the lands of snows, Loksan Drakpa, at your feet I make request.